Hello, everyone. Welcome to Quality Catechesis. I'm Father Joe Krupp, and you're not. And I'm excited for today and today's show because we got A, some great stuff going, but B, I have a story I was going to tell everyone, and I can't remember what it is, but it was very funny. I know. I'll tell that in a minute. But before I tell the story about my x-ray, can you help me remember? Yeah. X-ray. I have to tell the story about my x-ray. I want to let you know, okay, it is a great story, that a great human is here with me today. One of my friends from Hudson, David Natsky, who's with Primerica. And this is a guy who, when my retirement guy retired, which was just rude, right, Nooch?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He was like, oh, my health is bad. I'm like, what about my money? I sounded just like Jesus. This guy not only stepped in and helped me with retirement, because we had to rebuild it. Some bad things happened. He taught me how to do financial planning and to do so like in a responsible and cool way. And I just love him. And I'm so happy he's here today. David Natsky. So if you're a person, honestly, can I do this? Or are you going to kill me? Are you taking more people? Okay. I love you, David. This guy, I can't tell you how many couples like in marriage prep I would sit him down with, and he would help them make a plan. And they would have they would tell me, I had dad, I thought, for the rest of my life. So David Natsky in Hudson, Michigan. If you need help with financial planning, if you need help with your retirement, this is not a paid advertisement. This is me talking about a man that I treasure, who did just great work for me. And I'm so happy. He's here today, in fact, to take all the money from my meth sales. He will take cash and launder it before depositing it. At the advice of my legal counsel, I'd like to change the subject. So now for the story that happened yesterday. So I've got all these runs of doctor's appointments because I turned 50. And when you're 50 and very, very pretty, they want a ton of tests, including a test I'm not so excited about. But let's just say it involves a camera.
And a lot of prep.
And a lot of prep. I can't even think about that. Okay, so anyway, one of the things yesterday was a chest x-ray because they were like, where did you get these magnificent pecs? And, okay, I'm going to be honest, that might not be what happened. But here's the deal. So they do the chest x-ray of me, and they can't figure out, like, they were like, did you break your clavicle on both sides? Not that I know of. Well, there's steel pins in your x-ray. It was my beard beads. It was my beard beads were showing up on the x-ray of my chest. It was probably the coolest thing. Little Spartan helmets on my x-ray right here and here. That's a true story. And I had to take them out because you have to do an x-ray without beard beads if your beard is this long.
Yeah. You thought it was cool. Most of us would have been embarrassed. But that's good.
Yeah, okay. So adults would be embarrassed. I'm not. I rejoiced. And this was at MSU's football thing. So obviously they were ecstatic. Is x-rays expensive? Oh, they are. I don't know. But I cost them about 4 x-rays. My computer just flashed. See what I mean? It's evil. There's something wrong with my computer. So I had to tell you that yes, my beard beads showed up on my x-ray and ruined it. But the good news is they said I do have bones inside of me. I was fairly certain I might be a Terminator. You can't imagine how happy I was. I kept asking about my exoskeleton. So anyway, today, let's focus a little bit on this week. So today we're going to continue our lecture on the post-Pentecost church. And then tomorrow, I'm so fired up about this. Deacon Sean Costello is coming. Do you know Sean? No. So Sean and I started seminary together. Or actually, I think he was ahead of me a year. I don't know. Either way, he's married now and has 58,000 children. So he did not finish as it were. But he has, computer's flashing again. He had, oh, there's someone going around poking and moving things on my computer. It's possessed by Lucifer. Your computer is being controlled by Jay Bailey.
Yeah.
That's what my computer says right now, and the mouse is moving.
He's our guy. He's making sure.
Okay. I think he works for the Russian government.
Chinese.
Russian hacker. Bailey is a very common name in Russia. Bailyov. Bailyovsky.
That's where that great folk song, Won't You Come Home, Jason Bailey.
Yeah, Won't You Come Home, Jason Bailyov. Bailyov. He is the Russian hacker. Okay, so I need to stop screwing around and tell you that will be exciting because Sean is a person who has a lot of gifts that he has placed at the service of the church in numerous ways. And I just can't wait for you to meet him and to hear him. And I actually consider him truly one of the wisest people I know. Like when the scripture talks about the gift of wisdom, he's got that gift. And it is remarkable how compassionate he is, and at the same time, how ready he is to die on the right hill. I think the world of Sean Costello, and Deacon Sean will be here with us tomorrow, and I have to tell you, we're both 12 years old. So we might not get anything done except gas jokes. Can I say that? Well, I said it.
You already did.
Friday is, I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and make a bold statement. This might be my favorite thing we're doing. In terms of all the places we've gone to do the show, I always try to support local businesses, and I think that's huge. And probably my favorite to this point has been that one store we went into with a lot of things. It's the store, hey, our new employee's leaving. All right. What were we talking about?
Part-time.
She's part-time. Either that or she quit. She's like, that's my boss. The guy's nuts. So where are we going Friday? To Father Solanus Casey Center in Detroit. Father Solanus Casey Center in Detroit. And I cannot tell you how happy I am about that. I have his medal on my rosary. And I praise the Lord. Okay? So, okay, let me ask Carrie this, because I do want to be able to carry people's intentions with me. If people send you their intentions, can we?
I will get them down. Yep.
So what Carrie's going to do, if you have an intention for me to carry to Blessed Solanus Casey's place, please just say intention, and then what you want, we'll print it out, I'll carry it with me, okay, for a reasonable fee.
And if it's private, they can just message me.
Oh, yeah, and if it's private, just message Carrie. You cannot trust her.
The whole world will know that.
Right,
Yeah.
right. What's the old telephone, telegraph, telecarry? And that's actually the opposite of what's true. Carrie's like a vault. She actually knows who the second Kennedy shooter was. Yeah, it was her cousin Bill.
Yep.
Do you have a cousin Bill?
Isn't he the same guy?
She has a cousin Bill. It was not him. Oh my gosh.
Isn't it the same guy that buried Jimmy Hoffa?
Yeah, yeah. She also knows who buried Hoffa and where. Or if in fact he's alive and working at Truck and Bus in Flint. Oops. Was that out loud? Was that out loud? Okay, so I will quit messing around because we have a ton of good material and I'm excited about today. So let me get down to my notes. So last time we left off, I'm 90% certain with the Nicene Creed, right? And so as a quick reminder, when Christianity became legal, Christians came out of hiding all over the Roman Empire and started talking to each other and realized they had some differences. Now, what we need to talk about in just a moment is, and in fact, I forgot to write this. So what I'm going to do is quickly do this, okay? The 7 heresies. Okay, so as an answer to Christians fighting about doctrine, I knew I would do this. What we call an ecumenical council was convened. Now, when you and I use the word ecumenical, what we tend to mean is non-Catholic Christians and Catholic Christians sitting together. What ecumenical council means in this way is all of the bishops they could get. Okay? The successors to the apostles converged in Nicaea and wrote the creed over many, many years. And we ended up, we still say that every Sunday at Mass. Okay? You can say the Apostles' Creed at Mass or the Nicene Creed. Side note, I tend to do the Apostles' Creed, which in my thinking is pretty simple. When you pray the rosary, you use the Apostles' Creed. And what I found was a ton of people coming to me and they were getting so confused. And so I said, okay, for at least a while, we're going to focus on the Apostles' Creed. And there we are. So that's where we get the Nicene Creed. Now, again, people will tell you Constantine was the first Christian emperor. That's probably not true. There were probably Christian emperors before him, and I just didn't want to get into that with you. But he wasn't Christian until the day before he died. And to be clear, he did some fairly partly cloudy awful things. And he knew he needed to do awful things to consolidate his power. And that probably was part of his decision to wait for baptism. I mean, he had priests who just followed him around, ready to baptize him. But Christianity, and again, I was taught this at a university. I was taught, well, Constantine made Christianity the empire of the Roman religion. Oh, no, he didn't. That didn't happen for a while yet. What Constantine did was made it illegal to persecute anyone because of their faith, whatever that faith may be. And he did start to give Christians pride of place in his hierarchy. Why? Because he trusted them. That's what's crazy. He trusted that they would do the right thing, which is really hilarious, the way people interpret it. But, so, getting off of Constantine, he died and the empire fractured into a piece for every one of his kids, and they all started killing each other for Jesus. Not really for Jesus, but two major things happened with Christianity becoming legal, okay? And you need to know these because they're kind of big. The first thing that happened is for arguably the first time in Christianity, you had a massive influx of new converts who may or may not have been converting for the right reason. Think about that. Think about how crazy that must have been. That you had a religion for about 280 years, which is, how long have we been a country? I mean, that's a long time, okay? So for 280 years, you had everybody in the fight who was at least theoretically willing to die for their faith. Well, now you have people becoming Christian who did so just because it was advantageous. And it started to make a real mess, as you can imagine. A real mess. One of the saints living at the time bemoaned this. It's a great quote. Ready? He said, "There's now too much of the church in the world and too much of the world in the church." And what you started to experience was this mass exit from the major cities. Now, again, you're used to thinking of Rome as the capital of the Roman Empire, and it actually wasn't. Not for a long time. I mean, it was the capital in the sense of pride of place, but Constantinople was the capital of the Roman Empire. There was a city called Nicomedia that was the capital of the Roman Empire. There was a city called, what's the one in the swamps? Ravenna. Rome moved its capital around because where were its enemies at? Where did they need to be able to exercise the most amount of speed? They weren't in love with just sticking the capital in the city of Rome and keeping it there. And by the time you get to this point in history, the city of Rome was not considered a good place to live at all. Why? It was just a mess. It was a mess. So what you saw was all over the Roman Empire, this movement of some Christians leaving the major cities and moving off to the desert. And this is where you get the birth of monasticism. Right? People who decided society was so polluted that I will better serve the church living separate from society, praying for it. That you get this concept, ready? Ora et labora, which means work and prayer. That they would, in a sense, reduce their lives. And I say reduce not in a negative sense. to prayer and work. They tended to, this is the birth of the monastic movement. This is the birth of monks. The people just decided Christianity is too polluted with the world. And so they just bugged out. And that's where you get St. Anthony, St. Benedict, all of these great home run hitter saints with monastic movements, St. Scholastica, who just bugged out of society. They'll serve society by praying for it and by being as holy as they can. Great stuff. The second thing that happened is really defining, still today, okay? You had the explosion of heresy. Now, people use this word heresy really badly today. It is actually a real specific thing, okay? Heresy isn't just you're wrong, because if that's the case, well, no, Kevin is a heretic. I was going to say, if that's the case, Kevin's a heretic, but Kevin's a heretic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. A heretic is a person who willfully, obstinately refuses to embrace the truth, even when they have been taught it, okay? And on an important thing. And so what you have is the rise of these heresies. Christianity is finding itself. And the biggest heresy by far, was a heresy called Arianism. Okay? Arianism. Now, if you're like me, the first time you heard Arian, you thought of Nazis, right? This is unconnected to Nazis. It's spelled different. A-R-I-A-N-I-S-M, Arianism. And why is it called that? Because it was started by a guy named Arius, right? We lacked creativity back then. Right? He was a bishop in, I believe, Egypt. And what he began to teach is that the second person of the Trinity, namely we call him Jesus, was created by God. Okay? Why is that important? Guys, it would really take me a long time to walk you through, I'll be honest. But that's not what we believe. We believe Jesus always existed. That he is a being outside of linear time and for whom the rules of linear time creatures don't apply. Right? So in the same way that we say, who created God? No, God is creator, not created. We say that of Jesus. And hopefully you're thinking of the creed and realizing, yeah, right away in the creed, we establish that he is, quote, ready? Do we still say consubstantial? I can't remember. Consubstantial. What does that mean? Quite literally, in Latin, it means of the same stuff. Okay? And if he's of the same stuff, and I know that sounds crazy, but that's what it means. Consubstantial, of the same stuff. If he's of the same stuff as the Father, then he's not a created person. He's existence itself. And again, it's so hard not to go into this. But if I start, we literally wouldn't have enough time today, just on Arianism, okay? So why is that important? Well, because over 3/4 of the church was Arian. Most of the church was in heresy. And you have some great saints who just went about place to place, converting communities one at a time to this important understanding that Jesus is not, that the second person of the Trinity is not a created being. He's existence. He is perfectly one with the Father. That was a big one. What was another heresy of the time? There's what's called the Lapsy Controversy, okay? L-A-P-S-I. And what was the Lapsy? Sorry, I forgot to turn off all my fingers. I was very late today. How are we doing? Are you guys doing okay? Is this boring? I can't tell. No? David is sound asleep. Yeah, and he actually just pointed a gun at me and said, speed it up, fat boy. And I'm going to be honest, I'm uncomfortable with that. Okay, we doing all right? Do we have any? Okay.
Yep.
So here's another one, Lapsy. What is the Lapsy Controversy? Well, it's a big one, okay? Here's the idea. Let's say I'm a member of a secret Christian community when Christianity is illegal. And then a horrible Roman soldier named Kevin Nugent barges into the church and basically says, I'm going to confiscate all your property, because that was always the big punishment. I'm going to confiscate everything you have unless one of you hands over the sacred writings to me. So then, because I'm terrified of Kevin, the Roman centurion, Kevin Nugentis,
went on to live in Ireland.
Right. It was one of the weird Irish, Gaelic, Roman.
Norman.
So then let's say I say, okay, here's some of the sacred writings, okay? These are the checks I have to sign today. Let's say I hand those sacred writings over to those Romans to be burned. I have handed them over, or in Latin, I am a traitore, a person who hands over. And that's where we get the word traitor, okay? Traitor means basically the person who handed over. So let's say I handed over the sacred documents, or let's say I offered a sacrifice to a pagan Roman god. Then surrendered my Christianity or commingled it with paganism. I've just excommunicated myself, right? I have taken myself out of the church. Now let's say I want back in. Let's say after Kevin Nugentis flees, after bullying the whole church,
Yes.
let's say, and now I feel bad and I want back in. Now, you and I are all going to go, well, Jesus is merciful, and Jesus is, yeah. But he also had some pretty strong things to say about those moments, didn't he? If you deny me before others, I'll deny you before the Father. Okay? So the controversy was, what do? Do we let them back into the church? Do we make them do serious penance? Or do we tell them you're doomed forever? And again, I want us to be careful, right, with our Americanized Christianity, right? Oh, Jesus is merciful. Again, Jesus' strongest statements were about people who deny him and about sexual things. Those were his strongest statements. And so the church really wrestled with this. How do we handle this? And the Lapsy Controversy was basically that there was a large number of Christians who were like, nope, you snooze, you lose, pal. You're out. So that was a great heresy. When I say great, I don't mean woohoo. I mean huge. Like a lot of people embraced it. There was another one called Donutism or Donutism. I've never really figured out which way you're supposed to say that. But everybody who was one is dead, so... What is Donutism? Donutism is this idea that if now stick with me because this is relevant for us in today's American Catholicism, right? With all the scandals, this might actually help you to know this. One of the heresies was, what if I find out the priest or the bishop who did my sacraments was a horrible person? What if I found out they were a sinner? And so the idea was people started to believe, well, the sacrament is only as good as the priest. So if I got baptized by a priest who then rejected Christianity, who became one of the Lapsy, people would go get baptized again. Right? Or maybe they got married and they found out the priest later renounced Christianity to save his own skin. Then they would go get married again. And that was the idea, Donutism or Donutism. It was this idea that, well, if the priest isn't holy, the sacrament didn't work. And the church utterly rejects that. Right? Because I'm not holy. I'm not as holy as I should be. Right? There's no priest who can meet that standard. And St. Augustine was a big one on all of these heresies. That's why he's arguably top 5 most important saints. And actually, I don't think that's arguable. Okay? He's quoted in the Catechism more than St. Paul. I believe, get this. And Nude, you might want to check. I don't know if you feel like it.
Yep.
I believe Augustine is quoted more than Jesus. Seriously, in our catechism, and I don't know, Nuge, if you've got even any way really to check that out.
I'll see that.
But why is he so important? Well, because he was one of the great voices against all 7 of these heresies. And I won't go through all of them, don't sweat it. Dear God, I would never inflict that on you. But it was a time of great chaos in the church because we were free from outside persecution and now free to figure out what is Christianity. Right? What do we... And what he had, what Augustine had, was this scary, beautiful brain. And I mean it. You could argue, and I know there's Thomistic people who will fight me about this, you could argue he's the smartest guy that we had. Okay? I'm not kidding. And I am so googly for Augustine, I could pass out talking about him. If I make it to heaven, I'm going to fanboy on Augustine. Like, I'm going to be that guy where I'm going to hang out at the copy machine in the hopes that he comes by it. Be like, hey, Augustine, how you doing, best friend? Want to go do something together? And then, like, he's going to have to start finding ways to push me off. He's going to, poor guy. I'm going to stalk him. I'll be honest. God's probably going to have to take out a restraining order. Wouldn't that be crazy if the Lord comes to you and is like, you know, in the whole history of heaven, we've never had to do this. I'm putting a restraining order on you. Leave Augustine alone.
I can just see the coffee, St. Thomas Aquinas and Augustine talking and going, have you met this Father Joseph?
I know.
You won't leave me alone.
I know. Poor Augustine. What other saint would I get googly for? Joseph. Oh, and Mary. Oh, but she's never going to get that way. I suspect a male would. I do. I suspect a male would be like, God, can you make him go away? And Mary be like, oh, come to mama. I suspect the female saints will handle my stalking
They
better.
Offer Augustine bacon.
No, I'm not going to. I don't love anyone that much. I'm not parting with my bacon. What the hey? Why do you hate God? So, I'm sorry, I just took us all over the place. Now, if you're doing the math, and this is a side note, and I pray your forgiveness if this scandalizes you or it sounds like I'm downing anybody. That isn't, I don't think it's my intent, okay? If you're hearing all these heresies and you know you're Islam, you're thinking, this sounds a lot like Islam. Uh-huh. Perfectly so. Right? And just about 100 years after Augustine dies, there's a little thing that comes along called Islam. Okay? There was another heresy called Pelagianism that said you can basically earn your salvation. You could take your first step. Guys, Augustine predicted Islam, more or less. He knew something would come along that would capture all the things about Christianity that Christianity rejects. It's really wild. Right? Now, I have a couple friends, not many, frankly, who are Muslim, and I've pitched it to one of them, and really, this is hilarious. This is what he said. Well, sure, I agree. He said, what you guys got wrong, we got right. You just think the opposite. I'm like, okay, because I don't want to be offensive, but I don't want to pull punches either. I mean, one of us is right, and it's us. Of course, when I was at MSU, right, where Jesus went to school, they would do these diversity panels. And I think I taught you guys about this, where they would put me in a panel with 7 like super lefty ministers. Okay. And I would sit next to the Muslim because we were fine. And he always said to me, we believe a lot of the same stuff morally, but they can't. Their politics won't let them hate me. Right. So it was hysterical. It's a true story. But anyway, one of my favorite things was hilarious. Every year this happened, just about. One year it didn't, where a student, raises their hand for a question, and they're ticked at Catholics, right? Why? Because they're told to be. And they can go into, 6-digit debt the rest of their life, learning about, anyway. So, Drogo is a favorite. I just don't know if I want to meet him as much as I want to meet Augustine. That's just science. Sorry, Drogo, you're ugly. He is. He's the patron saint of ugly people. He's my guy.
He's the saint you can't turn away from.
Ugly himself. We don't know this.
Oh, we do. He had a horrible affliction.
Oh.
Saint Drogo was so hard to look at. This is a true story.
You couldn't look away. It was like an accident.
Well, they built a booth for him?
Oh, really?
Outside of the church with a little hole for communion. This is a true story. So that he wouldn't horrify people by being in the church and making them look at him. So he had a little booth outside of the church that had a little hole for communion so no one had to look at him.
I'm going to go hang out with him.
Oh, yeah. I'll be with Augustine. Who will have the beer?
I got a list of all his quotes.
Isn't it impressive?
Well, it is, but there's not a number.
Yeah. He outnumbers St. Paul, which is crazy.
It's a long list, and I now have a favorite.
Yeah. Oh, Augustine's a
for
beast.
this time of year.
Oh. So, anyway, where were we talking about? Do you remember? It was important.
Yes.
Come, Holy Spirit. Who knows? But either way, all of these heresies were centralized in North Africa, which is where Augustine served as bishop, in Hippo, okay? And that's where Islam came from, okay? And if you ever want proof of it, well, no. So I'll stop. You get the idea. So these heresies were very defining. This fight over what's right to believe. There was even one, and again, I'll be careful because I could go on and on and on, but that Mary was the mother of Jesus, but not the mother of God. That was a big fight. That was a brawl. And again, what region never acquiesced to the idea of Mary's mother of God? North Africa. And what do Muslims believe? Well, Mary was the mother of Jesus. That's all. Not the mother of God. Fascinating stuff. So Christianity slowly, fitfully emerges from this period of time just in time to see the Western Roman Empire collapse. Okay? Just when we kind of got everybody on the same page, the Western Roman Empire collapsed. And now this will take me a minute. Are you guys bored? You have to tell me the truth. Are they bored?
No, they're good.
Okay. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to do this next part clearly. Okay? I want you to imagine you've got the U.S., okay, which is smaller than the Roman Empire was, okay? Just to give you a sense of the Roman Empire. Now imagine for, give me a second, 5, 6, for over 1,000 years, we've been one country and everything is all run off of one central authority. And that central authority taxes the snot out of you. But dear God, you are safer than anywhere else in the known world at the time. Okay? Extremely ordered, extremely structured, and extremely united. Now, if you want a fascinating book, well, no, don't go there. Okay, then imagine, quite literally, overnight, it's all gone. So now there's no governor in Michigan. I'm in Michigan, right? And we got Governor Whitmer, okay? So imagine she's gone. Congress is gone. Senate's gone. Roads are gone. Police are gone. Everything that held us as one, and even our identity as Americans, gone. That quite literally you wake up to this reality. Because what did all the cops do? And they didn't really use cops, but we'll use that phrase. They went, well, if I'm not getting paid. And instead now we're going to stick with Michigan. Okay, so who are some fantastically wealthy families in Michigan? There's the Darts, right? I can think of two, the Darts and the DeVosses, though I'm sure there's more.
The Fords.
The Fords, of course, the Fords. Okay. Oh, Mary, head of GM, Mary Barra. Okay. What we find is those four families, that's where all the cops and firemen went. That Mary Barra, for example, says, holy cow, I have an incredible amount of wealth. I have an incredible amount of power. I need someone to protect it. And the cops don't have jobs anymore. So tell you what, police officers, you all come take care of me and I'll take care of you. And in the meantime, the DeVosses are doing it over there. The Darts are doing it over there. And of course, I hope it doesn't sound like I'm slandering any of these people. I'm just using an idea of a way to describe this. I'm not saying anyone would do this, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So now what you and I recognize, oh, Mott family, of course. What you and I start to recognize, we're just dudes, right? We're just dudes. We better pick one of those families. And we better go join them. And so maybe now we, again, we're Flint people, so it'd be the Mary Barra or GM, right? And we go to her and she says, well, of course, I'll protect you, right? I'll take care of you. But you need to fight for me. Right? You need to protect me. You need to work in the fields over here. Okay? And now this kind of system keeps going. And then what happens when the Barras get ticked at the DeVosses? What happens when the DeVosses get ticked at the Darts? What happens when the Darts get ticked at the Mott family? Well, now you get to fight. Okay? Now do you see how Europe became medieval? Kings, dukes. They even used the titles Romans used. Medieval, all medieval is, the medieval period in many ways, forgive how simplistic I'm being, is an extension of the collapse of the Western Roman Empire. And so now you, living in Michigan, are toiling in Mary Barra's fields. And when she says, go fight, you go fight, or she kicks you off of the compound in the area. And then as time goes on, she does need some taxes from you. Right, do you get the idea? This is how it all happened. Okay. Now, this feudal system, you as a human had one thing fighting for you. Do you know who it was? It was the church. It was the church. You were taught history more than likely, I'm going to be candid, very badly. And it's not your fault, right? You're not allowed in many universities to praise the church. But when they say the Dark Ages, yes, everything was dark except the church. The church at this time was building telescopes, created the university system that we use today, regularized the calendar, was the only one who could go toe-to-toe with your king and say, you better take care of those people. I'm serious. That was all you had. And these monks, remember those monks I was telling you about? They became immensely powerful. Why? Because they would take care of you with no obligation. You hungry? We got you. And every once in a while, if you wanted, they'd take one of your kids and give him something called an education. Less than 2% of Europe was literate at this point. Society collapsed so completely and so totally that within within 400 years of the 300 years of the collapse of the Western Roman Empire, when people found the buildings Romans built, they thought giants existed and built them because all that technology was lost. I could go on and on. This is the place where the church was at her best and at her worst. Okay? And I want you to think, now this is my opinion. That's all this is. I've read a ton, okay? But please be clear on this. This is my opinion. It's this stretch where the church hierarchy was at her worst. Okay, and I mean, oh my. Okay, I remember somebody who hates Pope Francis wrote this whole thing about how he's the worst pope ever. I'm like, Pope Stephen had 12 kids. We could talk. You know, if you ever want to be horrified, look up something called the Borgias. Right? The church was awful at this phase. But her ground troops, her nuns, her abbesses, her priests, they were home run hitters. You see more saints during this time. And it seems to me it's always been this way. That when the hierarchy's at the worst, the boots on the ground are at the best, and vice versa. I believe nothing is a sign of the collapse of Christianity in the West clearer than Pope John Paul II's papacy. Arguably one of the greatest popes of all time. Top 10, easily top 10. And there are people who will murder me in my sleep for saying that. They're just wrong, that's all. And what does that tell you? Boots on the ground, we weren't doing so good. There's rare, short bursts in human history where the high-ups in the church and the shock troops are all on the same page and kicking butt. Okay? This time of chaos, what the church offered was protection for the poor. What the church offered was education for the poor. The church was the only thing that could go toe-to-toe with a king and say, knock it off, and win. Now again, you know, well, what about this abbot? Yes, there were awful people in the church too. But we don't get credit for how extraordinary the church was during this dark period. Okay? We had some great popes. We had some awful popes. So you have this explosion. You know, were you guys taught about Gregory Mendel in school, the guy who was this discoverer of genetics, right? Did you know he was a monk? Were you taught that? Of course not. Probably not. He was a monk. You were taught about Vivaldi, right? And his magnificent music. Guys, he was a priest. We could go on and on. But the only institution that put women in charge of things was the Roman Catholic Church. The only institution at this time that was able to focus on something beyond survival and the naked accumulation of power was the church. You see great art. You see unbelievable learning. You see all of this extraordinary life in the church. I had one prof at U of M who acknowledged this. He said, we're always taught that it's called the Dark Ages, but we're only taught that because we skip over the church. He said the Catholic Church was the one thing doing great work during that time, and awful work. I want to be clear. If you look at the 12th and 11th, 12th, 13th century, give me a second. I know I'm saying this wrong. You see a lot of chaos, okay? So you start in the 10th century, 9th century. There were these wonderful people called Vikings who decided, hey, Europe, you look tasty. Europe was not ready, right? Europe was not ready for what the Vikings did. And they fundamentally altered everything. They genetically altered everything, right? It's where you get red hair. It's where you get tall, huge Europeans. That was chaos, and there's no equivalent. Again, we don't have a societal equivalent for the abject chaos that occurred when the Vikings realized the rest of Europe was completely conquerable, except for the Germans. You get into the 12th century, 13th century, and then you get this little group called, Mongols, right? The greatest conquering army in the history of the world. I mean, greatest in terms of success, not like lovely humans, right? During all of this time, you get William Wallace in Scotland. Anyone remember him? Sons of Scotland! Its will be on the rage. St. Francis of Assisi was alive at the same time as William Wallace. Hey, I could do this all day, and I gotta stop. You look at the darkest moments in European history, and there's your saints. For every Genghis Khan, there's a Francis of Assisi. Right? Man. But again, we were taught it badly. We were. But the church's success worked against her, because the more powerful she became in taking care of people and defending and all this, the more bad people wanted to be in her, because then they have power. And that's where you get a real messy stretch of the church's history. And again, I'm now going to tell you my opinion. That's all this is, okay? It's just my opinion as a guy who loves history and reads an obscene amount, okay? The more powerful the church is in the world, the worse she is. I can't find many times in our history where we were uber powerful and lovely all at the same time. There is a joy to be found in being the despised ones, because then we actually are a bit more like Jesus, who was despised. So you were taught Galileo badly. You were taught a lot of things, again, unintentionally badly. I remember being taught, were you guys taught that in the time of Columbus, they thought the world was flat? Mm-hmm. Nobody believed that. Nobody believed that. Truly, you can't find anybody who believed that at that point in history. But for some reason, all these weird little tidbits got floated downhill and they hit us. And again, that doesn't hurt you, right? But it's just a sense of some of the best intentioned teachers taught things badly because they were taught badly, because they were taught that if you say a good thing about the church, then you're messed up. The church did extraordinary things during this time, and some awful ones too. Just like, I don't know, you and me, right? The church, remember that whole lecture? The church is a person. Okay. So, boy, how about this? Any questions? Oh, I never finished that one about somebody raised their hand and asked, Oh, yeah, that's a funny story, because this happened almost every time when I was doing these panels. There would always be that kid who raised their hand and was mad because their prof told them the church said outside of the church there's no salvation. And I would always say, what do you expect us to say? That's the dumbest thing I've ever... And I know I didn't say that's the dumbest thing, but that's... If I knew them, I would say, what do you want us to say? Hey, we're wrong about God. Join us. We're wrong about everything. Jump on in. It is such a weird thing. And I'll never forget, at one point, the Muslim guy next to me, it was true, he went, we teach the same thing. Oh, that's okay. They were all okay with that. But he was like, yeah, I believe this guy's going to hell. He pointed to me. I believe this man will burn in hell. They were okay with that. But the church say, and so let's take a real quick look at that. Outside of the church, there is no salvation. Does the church teach that? Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. Does that mean everyone not Catholic goes to hell? No. It means if we make it to heaven, it's only because the work of God done in the person of Jesus Christ through his church. How is that controversial? Can you imagine? Join our church. Why? Well, we're probably wrong. But we're very nice. It's just one of the stupidest. And every year there was some kid who was just like, oh, I'm going to show him. I'm like, what do you want us to teach? Join the Catholic Church. We don't have anything right. Maybe Jesus is God. Maybe he was crazy. We don't know. Join us. And tithe, please.
We have pretty flowing robes.
Yeah, we do have some lovely robes.
I got an answer for you on the Augustine.
Okay, my lovely research assistant, Kevin Nugatus, I think that's what we got to do, Nugentus.
Make me Roman.
Okay, we're making him Roman. Kevanus Nugentus.
Oh, I like it.
I asked him, I said, can you check, is Jesus quoted more than Augustine in the Catechism?
St. Paul, not Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
St.
Okay.
Paul versus St. Augustine. And I couldn't find by quotations, but referenced.
Okay.
St. Augustine in the Catholic Catechism is referenced 108 times.
Okay.
Paul is 49.
Okay. Did you hear that? St. Augustine is referenced in the Catechism 108 times, St. Paul 49. And St. Paul's number 2nd. He's number 2.
Yeah.
Right? So again, why is Augustine so important? For a ton of reasons. But not the least of which, he held the church's hand and guided her through some very chaotic ideological times with a super crazy philosophical brain and a heart smitten with Jesus. I mean, smitten. And he fought, right? I don't know if you know his life story. It was hard for him to be pure, right? He fathered a child out of wedlock. Do you know about this? He had a prayer he wrote, truly, and it was, God, make me pure, just not yet. Isn't that great?
I still pray that.
Yeah, Kevin prays that every day. He prayed it right before. But he was a guy who never put on a pretense of having it together. Never. He knew he was a wreck. His first time he converted to Christianity, he converted to a sect called Montanism, which is a heresy, and we won't get into it. Okay? But he struggled, man, and he fought. But man, once he stuck the landing, whoo! Man. Okay. Do you have I got time for any of the history questions that how are we doing? Are you guys okay? I love this, and I'm never convinced other people do. Seriously. Because I'm a loser, and I find this stuff fascinating. But throw down any of your history questions. If I know it, we'll do it. And in the meantime, I'll do my wrap-up. Okay? So in the end, when you look at the Roman Catholic Church, you see the largest charitable organization in the history of the world. And I'm not going to tell you all our mistakes because everybody else did. And they screwed those up too, by the way. What you were taught about the Inquisition is baloney. What you were taught about the Crusades was baloney. Sorry, right? But you were, and we should actually go through that sometime. Now, granted, as the Crusades went on, oh yeah, yikes. Right? But you look at the first 2-3 crusades, and that saved hundreds of thousands of Christian lives. And although it's very cool now in the movies to show the Muslims were brilliant and we were stupid cavemen and all this, no, not at all. Men and women sacrificed everything to liberate Christians. Everything. All their wealth, everything. Those first few crusades were truly to save Christianity. Truly. Christians were being slaughtered because no one was on the same page in the Christian world. Okay? So, you have the largest charitable organization in the history of the world. You have the largest educational institution in the history of the world. You have an organization with a budget that's an eighth of the size of U of M's yearly budget that feeds more people than you can possibly fathom. Do we make mistakes? Oh my gosh, yes. And truly, if you gave me a genie thing, said you get a wish, you know what one of mine would be? Pull everyone out of Vatican City and replace them with people with consciences. That would be lovely. Sorry.
You probably made lots of friends at that one.
Yeah. Father, you should be a bishop. Do you hear what I'm saying? Did the Irish save civilization as the book suggests? Yeah, absolutely. They saved...
No, they didn't.
It's a better thing to say the Irish monks saved Latin, saved Greek, saved learning. Humans were in such a low state that everybody was all about survival. And I could share some things I've read, but I just don't have the heart for it. But if you were a woman in particular, your life was awful, and I mean it. But the Roman Catholic Church was the first institution in Europe to say something so crazy as women aren't property. Raping, pillaging is a sin. I could go on and on. But yeah, you could make a really good case, and the guy does. I think he's talking about the book, How the Irish Saved Civilization. That's worth your time. That really is. It's a lovely book. Now, here's one, I don't know. There are historians, and rightly so, who'd beat me for recommending this. But there's a book called Triumph. Boy, that's hard to explain.
Do you know what the author is?
No. The book's called Triumph, and it's a fairer view of history than you've been taught, but it's a little bit, well, it's slanted toward the church. Whereas everything you were taught was slanted away from the church, this guy thought the cure for diarrhea was constipation. How's that? So he went to the other extreme. But, you know, anyway. Any others? No. What can I tell you about Martin Luther? That's not a period of church history where I'm super adept. I have some general knowledge. Namely, Martin Luther was an Augustinian monk, right? And he took the philosophy of St. Augustine to, in my opinion, an extreme. Okay? Augustine's struggles with his own flesh, and again, when I say flesh, I don't mean the skin. Your body is sacred. But lust, gluttony, craven pursuit of power, that kind of flesh. Augustine's own battles with it, in my opinion, sometimes tilted him a little too close to contempt for himself. He horrified himself, right, with what went on up there. And every male in the crowd is going, yeah, I know what you mean. We call that Tuesday. I don't know about you ladies, you're a mystery to me. I know you exist and that you smell good. And you use a lot of hand goo, lotion. I don't know what it is. That's what I know about women. You smell nice too. Did I mention that? Yeah, okay. But Luther really did take Augustinian philosophy to its somewhat logical extreme. And as a result of corruption in the church, he broke. And I do consider that one of the most horrifying, scandalous things. We should be one, right? Oh my gosh, thank you. Holy cow. Really? Someone wrote that?
Judy Lukowski.
Judy, thank you, Judy. What a lovely thing to say. Oh my gosh. All right. You know, I get worried because I love this crap, and I don't know if you do, but it sounds like you do, or you're being very nice. And if you're being nice, you have shaved time off purgatory. You're welcome. You know what? I'm going to see if I can find this while we're here together before my computer is still being controlled by an alien. I'm going to see if I can find this real quick, okay? Stick with me. But, yep, I sure can. Praise the Lord. If you guys don't mind, I'd like to read you something I wrote many years ago, and we can close out with this. And again, I don't want you to misunderstand. I really don't. Guys, the church did awful things in history, but she also did glorious things. Just like you, just like me. I've done awful things in my life, and I've done glorious things in my life. So I don't want to give you this fanciful view that the church was perfect and oh my gosh, isn't she lovely? But I do want you to have a sense of holy pride in who we are, okay? So what I want us to do is I wrote this, and I'm going to skip around just because, what is it? It's 6 pages. A huge font because it was a speech I gave. Nude, you were there when I gave this speech many years ago, okay? The Catholic Church translated and compiled the Bible. The Catholic Church created the university system and educated more people than any other educational institution in the history of the planet. We're the largest charitable organization in the history of the world. In most counties, a majority of counties in the U.S., the Catholic Church is the largest provider of free food, clothing, shelter, and medical care. All right? Catholics boarded ancient ships and sailed the oceans to unknown destinations guided only by the stars. Catholics stepped off the boats and connected to new worlds, bringing the light of Christ. Catholics were brave men and women who founded orphanages and missions in these new worlds, caring for the lowest of the low. Catholics laid the foundations for hundreds of cities in the U.S. which bear the names of her saints, right? St. Louis, Los Angeles, Santiago, right? Blah, blah, blah. Salvador Dali, Leonardo da Vinci, Andy Warhol, Oscar Wilde, Michelangelo, Pablo Picasso, Raphael, and Renoir, all these guys were Catholic, right? The Catholic Church is the largest exhibitor of free art, okay, in the world. Catholics are composers. Beethoven, Vivaldi, Dvorak, Haydn, Mozart, Schubert, all these guys were Catholic. Right? Augustine, Aquinas, Blaise Pascal, René Descartes, the father of modern philosophy, all Catholic. G.K. Chesterton, J.R.R. Tolkien, Frank Capra, Bing Crosby, Alfred Hitchcock, Catholics. Marie Curie, right? Marie Curie, I can never say her name, right? The first female professor at the University of Paris, Catholic. Louis Pasteur, Gregory Mendel, right? Enrico Fermi, Copernicus, Sir Francis Bacon, the father of the scientific method, devout Catholics. Catherine Drexel, who poured out her life caring for the needs of the oppressed Native and African Americans in the 19th century. Elizabeth Ann Seton dedicated her entire existence to teaching young women and offering them a future that secular society wouldn't allow them to have. These are all Catholics, and these are Catholic saints, right? I could go on, and you're so lucky I won't because of the time. But whatever else, the church as an imperfect, she's the bride of Christ, and God has never given up on her any more than he could give up on you. And she is the means by which Jesus has revealed himself to the world and will continue to until game up. So you have a lot to be proud of as a Catholic, holy pride. You have a lot to be ashamed of as a Catholic, holy shame. But we are more than our mistakes. And even the mistakes we made, you usually weren't taught. But so that's a snapshot of us, okay? And what I'll do next time, I'm going to think about it. But one of the things I was thinking of doing is doing a little bit of a modern church history. Just a real quick one-show thing on post-Vatican II. Because, my God, we're insane. We are. Okay? So, don't forget. Tomorrow. Deacon, what's up? You're giving me a mama look.
No, is that going to start next week?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I'm going to think about it.
Okay.
Because I really prayed about it or thought about it. I didn't think we'd finish today.
Gotcha.
I really didn't. Okay? Tomorrow is Deacon Sean Costello, who formerly was superintendent of Catholic schools for the Diocese of Lansing and is now a Catholic school teacher at Powers High School in Flint. He was also a seminarian and just a great all-around guy. He'll be here tomorrow, and I'll interview him. Okay? Then on Friday, holy cow, we're going to Blessed Solanus Casey. Oh, I can never figure this out. I got to remember this. When we say Blessed Solanus Casey, people are like, I thought he was a saint. Okay, blessed is a title for a saint. Ugh, this is so hard. In this case, Solanus Casey is not celebrated during Mass. Like today was Saint... Jane de Chantal, right? So she's celebrated on the Roman calendar all over the world. Saint Jane de Chantal. Blessed Solanus Casey is celebrated on the Roman calendar only in his home diocese of the Archdiocese of Detroit. Does that help? That's the difference. He's just not on the universal Roman calendar. Okay? So, okay. Whew! I'm tired. We went all out, didn't we? What do I do now? Prayer. Oh my gosh. I'm going to pray and give you a blessing, and then I'm going to eat.
And sign checks.
And sign checks. Oh yeah, I have checks. Do one of you guys want to sign checks? You know, if you want to prepare guys for priesthood, they should prepare you for the fact that you signed 8 trillion checks every year.
Well, they'd let us do it.
And they're all for like $5.82. I mean, it's not, anyway.
Yeah. Well, they'd let us do it, but they can't trust us.
Yeah. We don't let Kevin sign checks, if you know what I mean.
We only trust
His
the
probation officer, man. So, guys, thank you for tuning in. I'm so glad you like this. This means the world to me. And really, we're getting a ton of views on these, and I'm so fired up. So make sure, if you would, please share these and like them. Share them with your friends and like them with your enemies. And pray for the Tigers. We lost last night. We were on a roll. I was actually referring to the Detroit Tigers as butter because we were on a roll. So, all right, let's say a closing prayer, and then I will see you beautiful people tomorrow, and we're going to interview Sean Costello, who has one of the most fascinating stories, and I can't wait for you to meet him. Let's pray. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Okay, Jesus, thank you for today. Thank you for our history, our personal history, our church history, because all of it, whatever our ups and downs, you are God, and we're so grateful. Whew. We ask for your Holy Spirit now to bless us and to strengthen us and to be with everyone we love. Oh, and Lord, for all the things, sorry, my dog has a problem. I'm going to throw up. Oh, Lord, for all the things that we're worried about, all the things we fret about, including whatever this is, we tell you that we love you and we trust you. And may Almighty God bless all of you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. I am so sorry. I am glad you are not here. Okay, so bless you, beautiful guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.